All right, back at it. Ty Evans, yet another referral from our girl Angela Lewis. Shout out to Angela, episode 82. We just had Bart Womack on, master, sergeant major in the Army, 30 years. Now we have Ty coming up on 30 years of coaching in basketball, right? So along those lines, another high level coach with a lot of experience, played the big three sports growing up: basketball, football, baseball. Went on to play college basketball, played internationally at the pro level, and then moved on to coaching. He's been all around the country, the old Big 12 or the Big East, and the SEC here and there. And now he is the associate head coach at DePaul University up north, and well, I'm in Indiana. People would know that, but yeah, up north. And so on the women's side, been coaching women for a while. It's how we know Angela because he coached her. He said 24 years ago, and we were just saying what a high caliber person she was to have on the show. And but just looking at his resume, everywhere I look, every stop he's been at, and there's been several, which is the life of a college coach. I'm always looking for data. Numbers don't tell the whole story, but numbers don't lie either. And when I see uh, highest ratio or highest percentage of steals in the last 5 years, or first time they had a two-time all academic, all conference player in the last 10 years, every level it's first to this. So he's has this history of building people up from not as good as they could be, or they're already really good, and making them better. And there's been a constant underlying theme of impact, and we're going to get all into that. But first, I want to welcome Ty Evans to the show. And my first question right off the bat: Who do you have, OKC or the Pacers, coming down to Game 6 here?
OKC. It's over.
OKC. It's
It's
over.
over. It's
Oh,
over.
see, I live in Indiana.
I apologize, but it's
That's all right.
over.
It's over. What happened?
And to be honest, I really wanted Indiana to win. I
Yeah.
really did. 𝗟𝗶𝗶𝗃 is from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is
Oh yeah.
about maybe 2.5, 3 hours from where I'm from originally. So I was going for the Pacers, but my gut is telling me that it's over.
Mm.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana will win tomorrow night, but if they do, it will just go game 7.
Yeah.
It's over.
It was cool. We have he goes by AP Andrew Paul. He's the strength coach for OKC, and we've had him scheduled a number of times in the last couple of months. But what's cool is that he keeps having to reschedule because the team keeps winning.
That's a
And then
good
one
thing.
night, and then one night we had him scheduled, and then his guy won the MVP for the whole league, so he had to reschedule it. I'm like, that's cool. That's awesome, right? That's a one of the best cancellations I've ever had. So
That's right.
we got him coming up right before the 4th of July, and so it's gonna be basketball for a little while now. And since we're in Indiana, that's always a lot of fun. My next question, Ty, there's basically a two-parter. As everyone elevates their career and their lives up, there's usually some kind of moment where it's like, oh shoot, man, this just got real. And everyone's usually like the big fish in junior high, then the smaller fish in high school, then there's the big fish again. What was your holy shit? I'm now playing in college basketball. And what was your moment like when you're coaching? Like, hey man, I'm coaching. This is real people here. This is for real. This is big time. There's a lot of people here cheering. Like, there's money on the line. Like, what's going on, right? As a player and a coach, what were those moments, and what was that like for you?
Oh, that's a great question. So for from a playing standpoint, I'll never forget. I'm in high school, and you ever heard of a guy by the name of Anthony Penny Hardaway?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah,
You ever heard of Allen Houston? He's
yeah, oh yeah.
actually, I think he's the president of the Knicks. All right, so I'm at a basketball camp going into my junior year, actually in Rensselaer, Indiana. It was a BC All-Star camp. And here I am. I'm 16 years old. I'm coming from Lake Wisconsin. Like you said, I was kind of a big fish in the small pond. I was playing varsity. So I couldn't wait to get up here. I couldn't wait to test my skills against, some of the best players in the country.
Sure.
And I had never heard of a guy named Anthony Penny Hardaway, never heard of him. So
Mm,
here I am. I'm in the gym and I see this 6'7" point guard, natural point guard, and I'm looking at him and I'm watching him move and watching just the fluidity in his game, and I'm like, holy cow, who is that?
right.
And when they told me that He was going into his junior year, and he was from, I'll never forget, from Memphis Treadwell High School, and he's one of the top point guards in the country. I looked at my friend and I said, "Oh shit, we got some work to do. This is
Right?
different out here."
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. That was my first moment as a player. As a coach, I think the first time it hit me was when I was at Georgetown University. We were in the old Big East,
Mm.
and we were playing against Rutgers University, and they had a player by the name of 𝗀𝗶𝗶𝗹.
Okay.
She's actually from Chicago. And when I tell you, I have never seen a women's basketball player play the way that she played. It was like there was nothing we could do. We couldn't speed her up. She scored whenever she wanted. The game came easy. I had never seen a player impact the game like that, especially on the women's side. So that's when I knew. I said, "Okay, this is different. This is
Right.
different here." So those are my first two welcome moments.
Usually in each moment, there's a bit of a humble pie that comes along, and you're like, shoot, okay, it's a little different here. And then the great ones, they usually square their jaw and they go in and fight. And they don't always win right off the bat, that's which is fine. But they take in that data, I call it, they learn new lessons, they learn about new abilities, and they're like, oh man, okay. So now here comes some more knowledge. What do we need to do? Like most point guards aren't 6'7". Magic Johnson at 6'9", like holy cow, right? But on average back then, that's pretty big. And if you can handle the ball that well and command the team, talk about a presence and a domination at that position. He had an outstanding career. And then as a coach, you're like, well, shoot, man, I got to get my players in the position to beat that girl, and she's unstoppable right now.
I'd never
Hmm.
seen anything like it. I mean, she
Hmm.
literally could score at will. She was a machine. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, okay, this is the first time where no matter what you put on the scouting report, it didn't matter. And to me, that's the definition of a superstar.
Yeah.
When you can come up with a scheme or a game plan and they'll still figure out how to impact the game in a way that nobody else can. That's the definition of a superstar. That's the first one I've seen face to face.
Hmm. Hmm. Humbling, but a lot of fun too, and a huge challenge. Let's just make an assumption that this is the year 2025, and Ty Evans gets drafted round one. What's your walkout song gonna be?
Uh, that's a great question. My walkout song. Wow. That's a great question, Jim. What would my walkout song be? Probably So Ambitious by Jay-Z.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
fun. Where are we going? What,
absolutely.
what what are we having for our meal afterwards with the whole family, all the friends
Oh,
for the
that's
big party?
easy. Oh,
All
that's
right,
easy. I'm a cheese and sausage pizza fan, and I'm a lemon pepper wing fan with ranch. That's easy. I can every day,
every
easy,
day.
every
All
day.
right, fun. All
That's
right,
why I
that's
work
awesome.
out. I work out so that I can
So I
eat
could
that and
eat.
feel less guilty. Right.
Oh man. All right. So one of the coolest things I saw right at the bat when I was reading about you is um, you're obsessive. I like that word. Inclusiveness. Obsessive inclusiveness, and you're more about transformational impact versus transactional improvements. Transformational impact, much more so than transactional improvements. Talk about those two things right there.
Well, for me, I think, it's all about elevation. It's all about growth. And I think when you're a coach, it's synonymous with being a teacher. And I think the reason why you go into those types of positions is because you want to help people. But I think a lot of times when you're in those positions, I think it's easy for it to become a transactional thing. What's in it for me? Well, for me, what's in it for me is to actually absolutely help someone reach a level in which they didn't know that they could obtain.
Mm-hmm.
And, by any means necessary. So I've always kind of been that way. I couldn't really articulate it when I was younger, but I've always had those feelings. And then as I got older, I really started paying attention to different teachers. And I like to read a lot. I'm a voracious reader. And I always came back to those words, transformational and transactional. And I never wanted to be a person that was considered transactional, where I'm doing something to get something back. I always wanted to be in a situation where I'm giving, 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 and then you may not see the fruits of your labor right away, but I like to use the phrase compound interest.
Yep.
The more you give, eventually
Mhm.
you'll see the fruits of your labor. And that's kind of how I look at it. And to me, when you see the fruits of your labor, when you're doing it for all the right reasons, it becomes transformational.
Yep. Yep. Every once in a while, like I'll be coaching someone, and I'm not going to call this transactional, but I could say, excuse me, in the short term, here's a little tip. Like, hey, you know what? In the short term, you're way behind on fluids. Drink this Gatorade, blah blah blah. Have some electrolytes. You're good to go. Long term, let's talk about your hydration process during the season, outside the season. So there's big picture and little picture. And I'm probably a little, I don't know. I try to be very authentic if I can. I've had good success with that. And if I'm coaching someone, when I say like I'm transformational, I'll say I'm transactional as well. And here's how I say it. Like I'll say this to a kid, hey, I'm going to push you to do these things right because when you do well, selfishly, I feel good about myself. Like I got you to perform, you improved. That means I had an impact. So when you get a win, I'm on the sidelines. No one's ever going to see me or know my name, but I get this little win too. That's the payment. That's a payment for me. You know, there's a financial payment. We get more and more people to train with us. Sure, then we buy better equipment, etc. But so I can't, be naive about that. But there really is. When you're helping someone out, when people do a philanthropy, like I'm sure you've done charity work at some point.
Mhm.
People pick a charity the ones that they like, right? Because it feels good or
Sure.
it means something to them. The transformational, that's going to impact their life like on the court and outside of that in the business world with their families. And that leaves the lessons that when Ty and I are good and dead, someone else can feel that.
And that's my thing. I mean, if you look at the word transformation, it simply means change.
Hmm.
So you meet someone at their level and then you impact them in a way that hopefully it'll leave a lasting change on their particular life. And that's the way I look at it. As a coach, I pride myself on having relationships. I'm coaching college basketball now, so essentially you're coaching them for 4 or 5 years. But if I'm only coaching them for 4 or 5 years and that's the extent of our relationship, then I haven't done my job. My job to me is to introduce myself to them through basketball their freshman year. And what we're doing is we're actually starting a relationship that's going to be lifetime. And to me, that's transformational. So that's what
It
it's
is.
about. That's what it's about.
And that trust and that confidence between the two people is being built or broken all the time, right?
No
Every day
question.
it's being built up or broken down a little bit, and it's that compound interest effect where you keep stacking those daily wins.
There
I
it
love that.
is.
I love that because our mantra is win the day. Oh
Hmm.
man, you're just making it easy for me over here, Ty. How about this? I was telling my wife, she goes, "Well, who's this Ty Evans?" And I go, "It's a referral from Angela." And we're like, "Oh, we love her." And tell me something about Ty. I go, "I'll tell you something about Ty. Doesn't really matter now, but he's in junior high and he's decided, hey, all my friends that got little siblings running around the neighborhood, I'm going to start putting together this camp at my house and run my own little personal camp. I'm a junior high kid with these younger little kids and their friends. Bring them over to my house, and they go so far as to print out. I'm not kidding, a little certificate. So there's some ownership. There's a prize at the end. There's like validation. We met a standard and passed on his own. Entrepreneurially, that's outstanding. I don't know if you even charge any money, but I, you're like a called, your coaching calling came at a young age. Well, tell me about that. How'd that happen?
Man, it's so crazy as I was thinking about it. I think about it from time to time, and I didn't even realize what I was doing, at that particular time. I'm 13 years old,
Mm.
and my brother is 8 years old, and it's the summertime, so we don't really have anything to do. We wasn't in camps or anything like that. So at that age, my mom would just say, go outside and play. So we had this backyard where the neighborhood kids were coming. We'll just play football, baseball, basketball. You know how kids would do in the summertime. So to make a long story short, I had a friend, he's 2 years older than me, and he had a younger brother as well. His younger brother was 1 year older than mine. So here we had this 8 and 9 year old, and they're all playing football in the backyard. And all of a sudden, we just started organizing them and putting them in drills. And I saw how they were responding to it, and it made me feel good. Like you said, I guess that was a transaction in itself. But
Sure.
it was like a Monday, and I'm like, you know what, Scott? let's do this every day. Let's have them come over at 1 o'clock every day. So they would come over at 1 o'clock and we would put them through these drills. And then I noticed at night, I couldn't stop thinking about the next day. So then I would come up with these drills and it was all football. And then on Friday, I remember when I would go to basketball camp when I was younger, Friday was awards day. So you would have all these competitions, and at the end of the camp, you would get a certificate. So I told Scott on Thursday, I said, "Hey, listen, we should come up with a way to make these certificates. That way, we got to come up with a name. I can't remember the exact name that we came up with. We came up with the name in like 24 hours, and we sat down in my basement. We made certificates, and at the end of the camp, at like 3:30 on a Friday, we gave out certificates. And what I remember walking away from my backyard was the feeling I got from instilling and pouring into some of these young individuals. It made me feel so good. And
Mm.
I'm 13 years old, and I never knew at that time that was the birth of me, being a coach. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. So it's always been in me. And like I said before, that was God's way of releasing it, so that I can see at a young age that that's what I was destined to do.
The maturity. Like you ask my brothers, and I love them, and they love me now, and they love me now. But I was 5 years older than Eric and 2 years older than Brad. I was I was a jerk. I was beating on them, picking on them. I wasn't helping them out. No. So the maturity and selflessness right there. I At that age, that was not me. So man, that's outstanding. The Did you do it again a week later, or did you do it another year, or was it like a thing after that, or was it just a one-time deal?
It was a one-time deal, but I never
Nice.
forgot about it. And then fast
Mm.
forward, I'm in high school, and my high school coach would have basketball camps in the summer for youth. So organically, I became like the youth instructor. Then I became like the youth director. And by the time I was a freshman in college, I would come home in the summers and I literally would run the entire camp, in the summertime. So, like I said before, it's something that I started organically and at 13 years old, and it kind of just went from there.
What about your own development? Were people pouring into you as well, your coaches, and helping you out, getting better?
Oh, no question. My best coach I've ever had, regardless of sport, was a guy by the name of Tony Hill. He was my Pop Warner football coach. Unfortunately, he passed away due to cancer years ago. But the lessons that he instilled in me at age 10, I still use today. I've never seen someone who had a combination of toughness and sensitivity and compassion, empathy, competitiveness, preparedness. And I learned this at 10 years old. I
Hmm.
mean, he was literally coaching us like we were in college at 10 years old. So, the older I got, I didn't know any better because that was my foundation.
That's awesome. That's amazing. You know, moving forward, you've been coaching most of your life, it seems like, and I found pretty interesting when I'm looking through your resume. Like I'm born and raised in Ohio, live in Indiana, went to Purdue, love Boilermakers, but also being from Ohio, love Ohio State, and like you're not going to see people leave Ohio State very often. It happens every once in a while, and then go to Michigan, right? Like 𝗏𝗃𝗀𝒃𝗃 did.
I know where
And
you're going with this.
you know where I'm going with this because you did it twice. Auburn and Alabama, and then Georgetown and Syracuse. Like, what happens when you go to the second school and they're looking at you funny, or uh, any hazing going on? Like, how does that happen? And just give me a little rundown on those two different experiences.
I think at the end of the day, I always wanted to be the answer to a trivia question.
Mm. Check.
Exactly. There was no doubt about it. And the Auburn, Alabama situation was unique in itself. It wasn't anything that was planned. I was at Alabama for 5 years. I was at Auburn for 8 years. But the reason why I made the move from Alabama to Auburn was more of a family slash loyalty move. The coach that I worked for at Georgetown had got the job at Auburn while I was at Alabama. And we talked about it back and forth, but she didn't know this. She don't know this to this day. I left Georgetown after 2 years to go to Alabama, and I always felt like I left her a little bit too early, and I felt guilty. So it was a little bit of a remorse there. So when she got the Auburn job, I looked at it like it was my opportunity to repair or to do what I was or finish what I started. So it just was coincidence that it was at Auburn, but it was really me just being the loyal person that I am. I just wanted that opportunity to finish what I started with her. So that's how I ended up at Auburn. But it was tough going from Roll Tide to War Eagle. It wasn't easy.
It sounds like you had a little bit of unfinished business with her and needed some closure,
There it
um,
is.
right? To make that happen and then feel good about, all right, I can move on now. Uh,
There it is.
they accept you over there at Auburn. Everything's good. No
It
hard
took a while.
feelings.
It took a while. It took a
Okay.
while. Yeah. But I mean,
Little
being there eight
frosty.
years, absolutely. Yeah. Little frosty. It was like North Pole up there for a while.
No shit. Okay. How how'd you build that trust then?
Being consistent,
Yeah.
just being me, being authentic, being transparent. And I think
Hmm.
when people really truly realize, that you are who you say you are, and you're consistent over time, I think eventually they kind of warm up to you, and that's what happened.
They see it enough, they can then trust. And I say, all right, I see what this person's about, and I haven't been burnt. It doesn't seem to be fake. All right, we got a shot. Let's let him in a little bit more. Let's give him a little more exposure, a little bit more rope.
There it
Now,
is.
growing up, like you were busy playing a lot of different sports. That help you much in college, and you find that as a coach, finding athletes that can play different sports helps or hurts you, or when you're recruiting people. Well,
Oh no.
give me your thoughts on that.
Oh no. I think it's one of the best things you could possibly do when you're a youth is to play as many sports as possible. And as a college coach now, I'm over 25 years, and one of the first things I look at when I'm evaluating is whether or not they play multiple sports. I think it's a huge advantage. I mean, basketball, if you look at basketball and how basketball is played, and then you look at soccer, there's not a lot of difference,
Right.
except one you're playing primarily with your feet, the other one you're playing with your hands. But in terms of the movement, the start, stop, the interval training, I think it's a great, great sport, secondary sport for basketball, as well as volleyball as well. Volleyball, that second jump in volleyball is just like offensive rebounding.
Rebounds.
So,
Yep.
absolutely. So for me, the more sports you can play, the more interested I am because I know that you're an all around athlete. You got a better chance of being an all around athlete.
When are
Absolutely.
you when are you not so concerned that someone might specialize and just play one?
I don't like when they specialize, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
think when it's time for you to focus on one, I think you'll know. I think it
Hmm.
happens way too early. I think you should play as many sports as possible. I think there's an advantage of that. Like for me, I laugh when people say, well, if you don't focus on one sport, there's somebody else that's focusing and they're going to be better than you. Nah, not necessarily true,
Right.
and even if they are at age 13, by the time they're 18, 19, we all know if you're focusing on one sport, you're using those same muscles over and over again. And to me, there's a reason why when they get to college, freshmen and sophomores, you have, to me, a huge increase in injuries because you have a lot of players that are only playing one sport,
Yeah.
But if you can spread it out and play baseball, football, track, volleyball, not only do you become a better athlete, I think you're using more muscles, you become more coordinated. I just think there's so many advantages for playing multiple sports that we don't have enough time on this podcast to talk about it. I'm a huge advocate of playing multiple sports.
Gotcha. Me too.
I
Me
can't
too.
stand specialization. Can't stand it.
Can't stand it. Write that down, everybody.
Yeah, that's for doctors and lawyers.
Right? When people ask me, I advocate hard for multiple sports. I'll say things like this. I love my wife, and she knows I do. I don't want to be face to face with her 24 hours a day.
Absolutely.
I don't, and I love my wife,
I love
and
pizza.
I
I
love
love
pizza.
wings, but I
Right,
don't want it every day.
every day. So there's no missing it if I'm hitting it every day, right?
There you
So
go.
psychologically, you can get a little burned out. It's called the law of diminishing returns. If you're an economics major, after a while, it just starts you're not as interested. So that's one piece right there. Number two, picking a sport that's similar but different, like you said with the different muscles, gonna lower your injury rate because you're not as repetitive,
Mhm.
right? And number three, those you said coordination. So those neural pathways in your brain, you're doing something completely different. Like my daughter played soccer and then she was also a thrower in track, like completely different, right? Unrelated. when you're doing something completely different, your brain has to think and learn new things and skills, right?
Hmm.
Making the brain, if as you will, stronger, right? Making the brain better. And at some point down the road, you're not going to believe it or not, but whatever you learned over in some other sport is going to translate in your main sport, and you're not even going to be thinking about it because you have those neural pathways developed because you have those different developments, right? So playing a different sport, man, you get to miss your main one, you get to reduce injury rate, and then you get actually more athletic and better because you're learning new different things with coordination. So right off the bat, um, something near to my heart though, as a strength coach with the injuries, where I'm always talking to parents and saying, hey, you need to make time to make sure that you're strong enough, fast enough, powerful enough to handle the rigors of your sport. And if you're just doing change of direction in basketball, or if you're just doing lateral stuff in tennis, but you're not building any leg strength or core or glute strength, you open yourself up to injuries. And I hear, well, I can't miss this and can't miss that. I say, well, yeah, this is America. You can miss some things, right? You got to say, hey, I got to miss some things. And I tell them, hey, pros will lift on game day. College players will lift on game day. And it seems like middle school and high school kids are playing college level volume, have been playing so many games that I'm like, holy cow, man, you're barely through puberty and you're playing that many games. What's your thoughts on that component there, Ty? Too much. Oh,
Yeah.
yep.
Um, you're going, and July is a huge recruiting month in college basketball. We're on the road pretty much the entire month. And we go to these tournaments, and you have teams that are playing 3 games in one day, three
Mm,
games in one day, literally 3 games in one day. So if you're playing over the course of 3 days, you may be playing between 7 and 10 games. I think it's overkill. I think it's too much. And
insane.
then you combine that with the fact that, sometimes your games are 2 and 3 hours apart. So you're not eating healthy. You're eating whatever you can get your hands on, whether it's a hot dog or nachos. And then you go back out there and then you want to play another 40-minute basketball game. There's no way that there's the word recovery involved. There's no way, you know. And at that age, you don't think about it like that. But to me, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And I think it's ridiculous that you're spending that much time playing these games, but you're not spending the same amount of time preparing to play the games, to training. That's what gets lost out.
100%. You mentioned nutrition. That's one of the 6 athlete builder components. You mentioned recovery, another one of the 6, the physical training. That's a third of the 6, right? My goodness, you skipped half. Like you did all that stuff, you skipped half of the
Right.
6 things that build athletes. And 2 of them keep you alive, the resting and
Absolutely.
the eating. So my
It is.
goodness. Uh, you said mental health versus mental toughness is a topic, and so I see that a lot. I see mental health being stronger in a lot of areas and then weaker in others with kids. I see people be mentally tougher, but also mentally weaker. Why did you list? Hey, let's talk about mental health and mental toughness. What's that about with you?
Because I think people don't understand the difference. I think
Okay.
a lot of times people, they say the word, we all hear the word mental, the phrase mental health now. It's almost to the point to where it's a buzz phrase, but I don't think we really truly understand it. And I think a lot of times that, especially when you're dealing with athletes, you may confuse a mental health issue with a mental toughness issue, and they're two totally different things. To me, mental toughness comes from understanding, you know, you're going to have to overcome some adversity, right? And you may still fail, but you have to get back up. It's all about getting knocked down and understanding how to get back up. All right. That's how you develop the mental toughness. How do you also develop it? Well, you have to train. There's some discipline that's involved. And to me, when you're consistent in your training and your discipline, and you understand the value of not just repetition, good sound repetition, to me, that builds mental toughness, right? Mental health is something totally different. That's something that may be diagnosed. I'm not a doctor. I can't talk to you about bipolar disorder because I don't know anything about it. So I'm not going to tell you something that I don't know anything about as a coach. But mental toughness, I can talk to you quite a bit about that. But I think a lot of times people think because you may be suffering from you maybe have a mental health issue that maybe you haven't been diagnosed or we don't know about. Well, you can't say that person isn't tough. That person is dealing with something that maybe they may not even be aware of what they're dealing with. So
Sure.
the key is to point them in the right directions with the proper resources, trying to figuring out a way to help them from that standpoint. And then once you can identify exactly, what they're dealing with, then you can address it, and then we can get back to the whole mental toughness component. We can kind of combine the two. But to think one is the same as the other, to me, is doing that athlete a disservice.
Yep. Yep. You're right. And you come across some folks that are having some real challenges. Like I'm not qualified or smart enough to diagnose that and say, hey, here's what's really going on. You need to do these things. That's not me. The
Right.
only mental health correlation with mental toughness I dabble my toe in is I want these people to know that especially the kids, that they are enough. That they are enough. And if I didn't think so, it doesn't matter because Jesus thinks you're enough. All right. So you are enough. And if you fail, that's absolutely great because we're going to get some information about why we failed and we're going to get better quickly. So if they're a little mentally healthier, in quotes, in that area where they're okay making some mistakes, where it's okay to look silly, it's okay to lose or have a mistake in the weight room or whatever. That's okay. We're gonna get better, and you're still enough. And if you don't play varsity or you don't play in college, that's still okay. You should have 1,000 things you can offer to the world. I never played varsity in college, so you can still make an impact. But if you can be comfortable in your own skin, then you're going to be you'll allow yourself to fail, but and then enable yourself to get back up and develop that resilience a little bit easier. If you're so worried about how I look and how I appear, then the resilience is going to be hard because you're going to be handicapped a little bit because you're playing a little slow or you're worried about other people's thoughts. That's the only area I can even dab my toe in because I'm not qualified in other spots.
We go with a lot now. Anxiety,
Hmm.
that comes up quite a bit, and that obviously it can affect performance, but when you're dealing with someone who's being diagnosed with anxiety, the worst thing you can say is you can't be scared. It's not about being scared. You
Yeah.
have to understand what those triggers are. There may
Yeah.
be some childhood trauma involved that you don't even know about, that they may not even be aware of. So you got to get to the root of the problem. And I think that's important for us to understand. We have to respect it and we have to understand it. And once you understand it, then you can begin to deal with it.
How much greater in the last 5 years do you think that anxiety and pressure has been built in the college athletes and coaches with one performance and you don't perform either as a coach, there's always a chance you can get fired or the kids might leave in the portal now immediately. And then two, at other programs, you got deep pockets and they got more money. So if I play well here, there's that carrot. If I don't play well, you don't get paid. So there's that stick. Talk about the level of pressure and anxiety that's been elevated in the last 5 years.
Oh, it's no comparison to where it was 5 years ago. And then just to add to what you're saying, I agree with everything you've said. But to add to that, the whole social media component,
Oh yeah, yeah, right,
you know,
absolutely.
we're all on our phones, technology. I look at technology two ways. Either you can use it as a servant or a master. If it's your master, then you're in trouble. Now, when you're talking about having a bad game and you're on your phone looking at comments on social media about what people are saying of you 10 minutes after the game, we're all human. It's going to have an effect on you no matter what, the more you pay attention to it. So 5 years ago, I mean, it was bad, but now, I mean, it's ridiculous. I couldn't imagine coming up now, in high school, having to deal with what some of these athletes have to deal with now. And I think they are mentally tough because what they have to deal with, we didn't have to go through.
Sure.
So it's definitely tough.
What about you come across kids that are called tryhards? Like that's a big negative. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard of that.
So kids like, oh man, I don't want to be, don't call me a tryhard. Don't, I hope my friends don't think I'm a tryhard. It's embarrassing that you're making a hard effort either in your grades or in athletics, and they start labeling you like, oh that dude's a tryhard loser. I can't believe he's trying so hard at school right now. I'm like, oh my God, you're demonizing someone who's making an effort. The effort's hard enough as it is. and then you're making it look like, oh man, I can't believe that person's doing that. When
Well,
you're
that's,
out, good.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's funny when you say that. I started thinking about back when I was in middle school and high school, and how you had that one person who, when you were in class, who, anytime the teacher asked you a question, they were the first one to raise their hand, and they always knew the right answer. And because you didn't know the right answer, you criticized, you talked about that kid. It's the exact same thing. The
Yep,
place we have to get to is we have to be able to educate our athletes so that they understand that when they're talking about you like that, it's really rooted in jealousy and insecurity.
100%.
No question.
See, he mentions that, Ty mentioned that being a coach means you're a teacher, but there's also the psychologist you got to be. There's the therapist you got to be. The priest you got to be. The bartender you got to be. And listen to this, right? The best friend. And listen to the drama and all that stuff. So you wear a lot of hats, don't you, as a coach?
Oh, no question. Spiritual advisor, all that,
Yes, all
everything.
of it.
Yeah.
They come to you and I broke up with this person. This person dumped me, treated me like shit. Or oh my gosh. And so you're it's hard enough for me to get my own life squared away, right?
Yeah.
And now you're trying to impact all these young kids, man. Oh man, it's hard.
And for me, coaching women's basketball, because I've coached men's basketball and women's basketball, and a lot of times people ask me the difference between coaching and men and women. I said, you know what? The biggest difference between coaching men and women, men, for the most part, they're motivated by playing time. Women are motivated by relationships. So if you don't understand that, good luck.
Oh, dang. Okay, man. Um, so you said July is big for recruiting, and that's right around the corner. When you're out there talking to athletes, coaches, parents, and they say, "Hey, coach, man, what are you looking for?" Let's assume that you I don't know, maybe it's a point guard, and they have the height and weight and whatever. But what are you looking for, top to bottom, internally, externally, mentally, physically? What are you looking for in people that you're recruiting?
That's a great question. I got this from Kelvin Sampson, who's the men's coach at University of Houston.
Yep.
I evaluate before I recruit. So when I'm out in July, I'm not recruiting, I'm evaluating. I am out there looking at who I want to recruit. And what I'm looking at are basically the intangibles. Because at this level, I'm in the Big East. The players that I'm looking at, I know they can play. I know they can play. So I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at how they respond to adversity. If it's a point guard, I'm looking for, can you get others involved as well as keep yourself involved? I'm looking at, when you get subbed out of the game, how are you treating your coach versus if you get subbed out and you've hit two or three in a row and you don't think you're supposed to come out, what's your body language look like? I'm looking at all the things that they don't think you probably pay attention to. Those are the things that matter most to me, because character can get you 3 to 5 more wins in a year.
Mm.
No question.
And that's something that's more long-term transformative. You can start building a lot on that. But
Hmm.
if you see what people are just here, hey, I need to get my time, I need to get my numbers right. So, that's more transactional, which spoke to that topic that we had early on.
Hmm.
Uh, you've been around to a number of places, player and coach. What are one or two places you're like, oh my gosh, I like Jordan loved Madison Square Garden is what he says was his favorite place to play. What's the place where you're like, man, the atmosphere at this place is just nuts. I love when we, games in this place. I love what the fans are like here, men's or women or whatever. Talk about some places that you think, man, this is so fun to coach or play here.
South Carolina, women's basketball.
Okay.
University of Tennessee, women's basketball. Um, I've never been to Madison Square Garden. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I've never
Hmm.
been to Madison Square Garden. Um, Cameron Indoor Stadium, Duke University.
Okay.
There's a
Big,
mystique there. When you walk
big
in, you
time.
feel it. When you walk in there, you feel it.
To go to
Um,
a UNC Duke game, oh my goodness, did you talk about hating each other? Like I don't, I don't know. You could coach a Duke coach and then move on to UNC and have them allow you, on campus.
Trust me, there's no worse than Alabama Auburn. I've never
Okay.
seen anything like that. It's to the
Well,
point to where when I went from Alabama to Auburn, you know, Alabama's Roll Tide,
oh
Auburn
yeah,
War Eagle.
War Eagle. Yep.
It took me 6 months to even say War Eagle because I didn't feel right. 6 months. I didn't feel right.
Oh, oh
Yeah.
man, my daughter's gonna love that. She just finished her third year at Alabama. She's
Okay.
there for aerospace
She's
engineering.
in T-Town, huh?
Yeah,
Tuscaloosa, T-Town.
Tuscaloosa.
Great
That's
place. Great
great
place.
place.
Yeah.
One of my sons is at Purdue,
Huh?
and I went to a basketball game on the men's side, and right before he started, and I hadn't been there since I graduated Purdue '97 with my
Hmm.
undergrad, and then '09 with my master's.
Okay.
And so I take my son Sam back to Lafayette. He's checking out, go to a basketball game, and I'm just blown away how involved the fans are. They had this thing where you could download from the scoreboard in the middle. You scan this QR code, and it connects my phone to the entire arena. So they turn the lights out before the game starts, and on your phone it has this flashlight that the arena then controls with the song.
Wow.
So the song is playing, and when it's a big beat, your flashlight is going. So the whole arena has this synchronized display of all these lights and songs based with all the phones because you scanned a QR code.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
That's
It,
amazing.
amazing. So like, I go to pro games, but the college atmosphere so fun. In almost any sport.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
How about as a player or coach, and you're the visitor, and you're like, oh man, This these people hate us. They hate me for who I am and the uniform I got on right here.
As a coach, that's easy.
Okay.
Alabama, Auburn.
Okay.
There's no comparison.
uh,
No comparison. That's easy.
being from Cleveland and unfortunately I love the Browns. Uh, they're usually terrible and they hate everybody. So anyone, but when the Steelers roll in or the Ravens roll in, it's pretty bad. But we're not any good. But we have a good time while we're there.
I know that's right.
How about with how transactional some players are? How hard is it to maintain that culture that you and your coach are trying to build? Because every year there's turnover, right?
Oh,
Coaching
oh,
staff or players. Talk about how do you guys do that? And what are, if you had like two or three core values for your culture up at DePaul right now?
you,
Could you speak to that a little bit?
yeah, the college landscape has totally changed with the NIL and the transfer portal. So in terms of building your culture the way you would have built it 10 or 15 years ago, it's out. It's
Mm-mm.
just not the same because essentially now every school is like junior college to where you're basically retooling your roster every spring.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, it's extremely hard. You know, we all talk about retention, but it's just tough. It's just tough to do. But I think what you have to do as a coach is you can't fight it. It's the new normal. So
Hmm.
you have to evolve with the times. You have to embrace it. But I still think that from a culture standpoint, you can have some non-negotiables that'll withstand, you know, player retention or for lack of a better way of explaining it, you can still have those things set in place so that when they're there, you know, they kind of know how things are. And that's why I've just going back to what I said before about evaluating versus recruiting. That's why evaluating is so important. You can't evaluate if you don't have a core values. You know, at DePaul, one of our huge things is accountability, you know, not making excuses. So for me, as I'm evaluating, that's something that's easy for me to see. You know, if you make a play and the official makes a call that you don't agree with, are you accepting the ownership or are you blaming the officials? Are you blaming your coach? Are you blaming your teammate for missing the shot? You know, those are small examples. Those are minor examples, but it says a lot about who you are. And for us, because accountability is so important, those things speak volumes to me.
Hmm. In practice or in the weight room or when you're traveling. I don't know if you follow this guy. His name's Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker. I like him quite a bit. He'll talk about how you need to set this standard, but then you have to elevate your standard, right? Any other non-negotiable standards you guys are always building on, or hey, this is one of our things. We have six core values: integrity, discipline, teamwork, kaizen, sisu, and enjoyment. And so we're looking for, and I find if any one of those is getting broken, we usually, internally, professionally, personally, like I'm losing, right? Um, any other non-negotiables or standards you guys are building all the time?
I've always had five. Personally, I was a head coach at Tennessee State for 4 years, and we had five core values, and they were fun was
Okay.
number one. Number one, no matter what I do, I have to have fun. It's huge. I think people don't really understand how important it is to have fun, but that's why it's important to love what you do. Because if you love
Yes.
what you do, fun becomes a byproduct of that. All right. Second one's passion.
Yep.
Third one is competitiveness. Fourth one is accountability. And the last one is servant leadership. And those are things that are near and dear to my heart. But I think core values should be something that you embody every single day, whether you're at work or not. So when I'm at home, I love to have fun. I'm passionate about my family. I'm extremely competitive about certain things. When I make a mistake, I'm the first one to raise my hand and say it's my bad. And I try to do things for people without reciprocity. And I think that's where servant leadership comes in.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. People question me. I wrestled with this myself, and I agree with you, especially about the fun one. I like all those core values, by the way, but the fun one, our corresponding one is enjoyment.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Why do you have that, Jim?" I said, "Well, if I hate what I'm doing all the time, even though I'm supposed to be doing it, like if I hate counting my macros, if I hate it, like it's simply not sustainable.
Absolutely.
You got to like a little bit. I was in engineering for 3 semesters. I hated it. I hated it,
Absolutely.
and I was invited not to return. I went into business. I'm like, okay, this is way better. I'm gonna try a little harder because I like this. If I absolutely hate it, I don't care how good I am. I'm
Absolutely.
not doing it. Not doing it. And after 3 semesters, mechanical engineering at Purdue was no longer for me.
I got you. I got to have fun. No matter what I'm doing, I'm having fun. If I didn't think this podcast was going to be fun, I would have never agreed to it.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, it's
I'll
about
t
fun, man. Yeah, if you don't believe me, go to a hospice facility and
Yep.
ask them about what they regret. Most of the time, they never talk about money.
Mm.
No, they always talk about, I wish I could have spent more time with my family. Why? Because it's fun.
Yeah.
Wish I would have took more vacations. Why? Because it's fun. It's
Yep.
never, I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have worked more hours. You never hear that. So if you go to someone and they're on their deathbed and all they talk about is what they wish they would have done and all those things surround fun, how can fun not be one of your core values?
Gotta be. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Talk about time in your life where though life might not be so fun. People have loss, like divorce, getting fired, get bad things happen, and there's some accountability there. Ta- It then still comes down to process what to reevaluate, assess, pick yourself up off the mat, and keep going. Talk about a loss, personally, professionally, whatever, and the comeback process or how you deal with that mentally.
I lost my mom. She passed away of breast cancer at 44.
Mm,
Um,
young, so young.
I was overseas in Europe playing basketball, and this is in the mid 90s, so there wasn't cell phones or anything like that. This is when you would call and leave a message on the answer machine. So the way I found out was that we would call each other when we knew we wasn't going to be at home just to leave us inspirational messages, words of affirmation, so have you. So I'll never forget, it was a Friday afternoon, so I called to leave a message on her voicemail, and she picked up the phone. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? She was like, oh, hey. I'm like, what's up? Why aren't you at work? And she was like, well, I'm not feeling too good. And I can tell the way she was stammering. A, she was surprised that it was me calling. And B, she didn't know what to say because my mom never lied to me ever. So she said, well, I haven't been feeling good, but I'm going to be okay. And I knew then because the season was over. I was just over in Norway working out. It was a Friday. I called my agent right after I got off the phone. I said, I got to go home. So that Monday morning, I flew home from Norway. I get home and she sits me down and she says, within 30 minutes of me coming home, she said, hey, I knew you were probably going to come home. I knew God was going to bring you home when you were supposed to.
Dang.
I said, how did you know? She said, I just knew. She said, I'm just going to be honest with you. I just came back from the doctor and the doctor has given me 2 weeks to live. Two. Yeah. So
That's
I'm not
hard.
going to go into the whole story. Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
2 years prior, she got the diagnosis that she only had two years to live. So basically, to almost to the day, she passed away. So
Mm.
luckily, I called that Friday, because if I hadn't
Yes.
called that Friday, I would have never known that she was sick. But God does certain things or puts you in position to do certain things because He's revealing through actions of what's about to transpire. So I knew it was God that made me
Look,
call that day. Yep, exactly. So I was
he's
able to spend
looking
two
out for
weeks
you.
with her. No question. No question.
Mm.
So, that was the biggest loss of my life. And honestly, I'm still dealing with it. It's been, what, 26, 27 years. But I tell people all the time, um, you never stop healing. What you do is the pain doesn't stop. You just learn how to deal with it better over time. And you try to use that pain to help other people who are going through or who are going to go through what you've been through. So, I look at it as something that it was a blessing for me because I had my mom for what 25 years and her job here was done. Her job here was done. So I can't I can't question God. I had her for 25. There's a lot of individuals who never even knew their mom. So that was my biggest loss. And like I said before, I try to use that to help other people who are going through what I already been through. So I look at it as a blessing.
I love that. I don't love that it happened. And breast cancer is one of our three main
Hmm.
philanthropies. Humbly, we raised a little bit over 40,000 last year, 45,
Oh, that's
and
wow. That's impressive.
we just give it all to this
Congrats.
hot this hospital that the patients come in, and they have all these packages, and there's a nutrition book on how to eat when you're going through chemo, and all things to be healthy, and how do you fight and do these things. So what I tell folks, like when they're losing or they lost someone and they're upset, I go, man, you know what a gift that is to be upset and be actually care, because
Exactly.
I bet there's someone in your life. I know there's some people in my life when they had passed. I was like, all right, see ya,
Right.
you know. Um,
It's
but
nothing like it.
to have someone to make an impact that still stays with you, like that's what we are trying to do, make that impact so we stay with these folks. And
Hmm.
that person, your mother, did. Like that's the win. That's why we're here, right? That's the win that you're looking
Hmm.
for at the end, right? Oh man. So
And
I know
and also,
it
Jim,
sucks.
what it does, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but also
That's
I
okay.
just want to add this because I tell people this all the time. When you lose what you never thought you could survive with losing and you're
Mm-hmm.
still here, man, that's powerful. It's
Right.
powerful. So what happens with that is you spend the rest of your life helping others who are going through what you've already been through. And it gives you a sense of purpose that, quite frankly, you wouldn't get any other way. I
Right.
know what it feels like to not have a mother or to not have the person who I didn't think I could handle not having. I'm still
Right.
here, right? I've been through a divorce, painful divorce. Kids are involved. I'm remarried. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm still here. So I know what it feels like to feel
Sure.
like you're not going to wake up the next day. But then, you know what? I'm still here, So to take that testimony and to be able to, share my testimony with other people to help them, man, that's what it's about, man. Paying it forward. That's what it's about.
You find that a lot with coaches because they want to make that impact, right?
Hmm.
And so they've learned these lessons. Like I didn't, I was, I was whatever I was physically, athletically. I always wanted to do more as an athlete when I was younger, and it didn't happen for a number of reasons. And so, I mean, my whole background's finance, investments. I went
Hmm.
Purdue for business, right? JP Morgan,
Oh, wow.
MBA, right? Dealing with high net worth individuals that are multi millionaires. Like that's not running a gym and being a strength coach
Right.
and trying to change adults and kids' lives. And it was just a piece that I didn't have fulfilled, like your Auburn job,
Right.
right? So
Right.
now I'm like, you know what? I'm like 37, 30. I got to make a switch here before it gets too late. And so now I get in the game over here where I'm impacting these people. I'm like, I'm doing what I can. So
Hmm.
that part makes it, the other parts that are horrible and hard, but overall, that kind of win for me is a lot more fun than the win you get from making millionaires much wealthier.
There it is.
Back when you played, what position were you at?
I was a shooting guard,
Okay.
masqueraded as a point guard, who masqueraded as a small forward. could do it all, Jim. Back then,
All
I
right.
could do it all. Jack of all trades.
What did you love about the game?
You know, I love competing. It
Mm,
wasn't so that I fell in love with basketball. I love football, baseball, basketball. I think with basketball, it got to a point to where I felt like I had more to prove. So I think that's why I gravitated towards basketball. But it wasn't necessarily the sport in itself. I just love competing
mm.
and I love being a part of a team. I love being a part of something that was bigger than myself. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
makes a lot of fun. You miss like when you went to play basketball in college, did you miss the football and baseball components? Or like, man, what were you playing in football?
football, I was strong safety and I was a quarterback.
Okay,
I, I, I missed it up until November. I'm from Wisconsin. It started getting cold in November.
sure does,
I didn't miss it after that.
right?
Yeah,
My
base.
goodness,
Yeah, baseball. Baseball was a little too slow for me. You know, I'm a little anxious. I like to
right?
go, in baseball. My father loved baseball. He loved baseball to this day. And I liked baseball. And ironically, it was probably my best sport. It came easy for me because my dad was an all-world softball player. I was around it a lot. Um, basketball probably was my third sport, if I'm
Mm,
being completely honest. It's probably just
okay,
baseball, football, basketball. But yeah, I just love competing though, competing and just I love the losses, I love the wins. There's nothing like the locker room. I just miss the locker room. That's why I'm still coaching. It's the closest I can get to actually playing. So
you still go out and then you know shoot the ball around or lift weights? You still train at all?
I don't shoot hardly ever. I
Okay,
train pretty much every day.
and
Yeah, I'm in the gym. I'm in the gym every day.
what do you
Yeah,
listen to?
when I'm training,
Yeah,
mostly podcasts. Ed
okay,
Milet, yeah, Ed Milet, Mel Robbins. There's this Game Changers podcast I listen to.
okay,
I'm going to download yours and start listening to yours a little bit more now that I'm familiar with you. Uh,
awesome.
uh,
We've been blessed with a lot of amazing guests in different walks of life. Special forces, uh, pro athletes, and college athletes and coaches. Um, the two on resilience, like all of them, like I have Navy SEALs, so they are resilient, right?
mhm.
Kyle Maynard, he has an ESPY award, and when he was born, his arms quit growing at the elbow,
Mm,
and his legs quit growing at the knee,
wow.
and he went 0-37 in high school wrestling, and then he
Mm,
ended up his wrestling career nationally ranked.
wow.
He's just submitting people, choking them out. Then goes into jujitsu. He writes a bestseller in his dorm room. He bear crawls. I know you know what that is. He
Hmm.
bear crawls Mount Kilimanjaro. That's 19,000 feet.
Wow. Wow.
Bear crawls the whole thing. He's in these little stumps.
Mm.
And he's one of the guys on the show. I'm like, oh my god, so humbling. And then Tim Brown, not the football guy. Uh, he is the FDNY chief on site during 9/11, calling all the shots.
Oh, wow.
He's in Tower 1 and 2 after they were hit, but it hadn't come down yet. He gets out of Tower 2, heads over to Tower 7, a smaller one. Tower 2 comes crashing down, smashes Tower 7. He's in it. He lives. He goes on to
Wow.
he loses 100 of his best friends that day
Mm.
and continues as a firefighter for a few more years, retires from that, and then spends the next 20 years helping himself and anyone else dealing with PTSD. And here's how we
Wow.
handle it, right?
Mm.
So, episode 63, I think. Anyways,
Check it out.
and then of course Angela, our girl at 82, awesome, awesome. When you're bucket list things, something to do, maybe you and your wife, something you haven't done yet together, or
Yeah,
some place you guys like
we're
you like
traveling to
to go.
Ghana. We're going to
Really?
Ghana. Yes, we're going to travel to Ghana. Yeah.
Well, why?
I've just been hearing so much about it in the past probably 5 or 6 months. I have a ex-college teammate, him and his wife, they're going over, I think in the next month or so for their anniversary. And then one of my wife's friends, they've been talking about going for I think in the next 4 or 5 months. So I said, you know what? Let's do it. So we did a little research and it just seems interesting. So we're gonna do it. We're
Okay.
gonna do it. Yeah.
Sadly, I don't know much about Ghana at all. My only reference is the movie White Men Can't Jump. and Billy Hoyle has to shoot this hook shot, and one basketball hoop has the Sudan flag painted on it, the other one has Ghana,
Uh-huh.
and he had to shoot this hook shot to get a favor done in the movie Wet Man Can't Jump. That's all I know about Ghana. Oh my goodness. How about favorite sports movie?
Oh, easy. Rocky. Two, three, and
Oh,
four.
two, not one though.
Mm-mm. Two, three, and
Oh,
four.
because one wins Best Picture, but two the other ones do not. But all right,
Yep.
yeah, I love all of them. Well, the last few I'm not nearly as much. How about a best basketball movie?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably a tie between Love and Basketball and Hoosiers.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hoosiers get you right, and that's one of mine.
Oh,
I don't know if you would remember this one. It's my mom had me watch it, um, and it's called Fast Break.
oh yeah, with Robbie. Robbie,
Yeah,
I forgot his last name. I remember watching it. Yep.
and one of the guys on the team is a female, and she's hiding that component. And another guy falls in love with her, but thinks he's gay because he doesn't know that she's a female. So
Hmm.
other guy, he and the coach get pulled over by a cop, and they have all this bags of weed, so they just start eating it. The coach and everybody, oh man, that movie is so funny.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
How about you said basketball was your third. What's your favorite sport to watch?
Boxing.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm
and
a
that
boxing fan.
and favorite athlete, any sport.
Magic Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah, that's easy. Magic Johnson. I love boxing though. Easily my favorite sport to watch. Love it.
Well, you're similar in age than me, and I was telling my kids this. I said when I grew up, I had Jordan and Magic. I had Mike Tyson.
Hmm.
I had Tiger Woods.
Hmm.
Like I'm like man, like I had the legends of legends.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, yeah.
How about do you have a favorite book?
I have a few. The Road Less Traveled is probably number one by M. Scott Peck.
Okay.
Number two, I would probably say The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Let Them by Mel Robbins. It just came out. And then Cry Like a Man by Jason Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's my wife's favorite question. We have about 1,100 books in our library. You see some behind me,
I
and
see.
I read a bunch. She reads a bunch more. So she always wants to know what the recommended books are.
Great question.
How about and this could be. I always forget to tell people this next question. It could be a real life person, or it could be like fictional, like comics. But a hero and a villain.
Hero, Superman.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Superman. Villain, I don't know. I don't really. I thought about that question quite a bit too. And anytime I try to make myself come up with somebody, I know I don't really have anybody. So I don't really have a villain. I don't really have one. But I love Superman. Always have.
Yeah. Well, Superman has a new movie coming out here in a month or two.
Yeah, I saw that. We'll check it out.
What about? Would you say Dennis Rodman was a bit of a villain?
I think he played it. It was more like a WWE. He played that role.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. I don't necessarily consider him a villain. I can see right through him.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought you might say your mother for hero.
Nah, superhero. Nah, that's my angel.
All right. Nice.
That's my angel.
Do you have a favorite lift in the weight room? And it's
Leg
okay.
press. Leg press.
Leg press. That's fun.
Yes, yes. Because I have I think it's hereditary. I have very small legs, and I was always obsessed with getting my legs when I was playing, getting them thicker and getting them stronger. And they got stronger, but you really couldn't tell. So I have broad shoulders. So they used to call me top heavy when I was in college. So I think I had a little bit of a complex. So I would always try to do leg presses and squats. So I think leg press is my favorite lift.
There we go. And a favorite quote.
Let them.
So is that the same? Does that correspond with the book?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Changed my
So,
life.
all right. Then I'm gonna be more curious and have to check that out as well. Where can people find you, Ty?
All I have, I'm not really active on social media that much. I'm on Twitter, at Coach TTE on Twitter. And that's the only social media page that I have.
Okay.
But
Cool.
they can call me 813-521-4024. You can text me. You can email me.
Careful there, man.
That's okay.
For those that are looking to contact us again at the show, it's info@athlete-builder.com. Check out the website now. There is new swag up there with shirts and hats and things like that if you want to help support the show. And as well, like both my books are available, as is the digital course. So, man, Ty, great having you on. Enjoy the time. I'm really glad we were able to do this. Um, a lot of your lessons that speak to me. I love the energy and the just a smile as you're going through. Even when you're talking about like things that are hard, there's a big smile that makes it a little bit easier to hear and handle. So just really enjoyed the whole exchange, and I'm really glad that Angela hooked us up. Thank you for being on.
Man, thank you, Tim. I really appreciate you, man. It means a
It's
lot.
great,
Appreciate you.
great. All right, man. We'll talk to you.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.